very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. It's fantastic to be able to follow my colleague, the member for Casey, in his contribution, who, as he mentioned, did such an outstanding job in his time when he was looking after a patch of Deakin, when it was then the part of Casey, in ensuring that Main Street and Croydon got CCTV, and that's an enduring legacy of his hard work, and I think is ultimately a great example of the fruits of the changes that I'm going to discuss today in the Crimes Legislation Amendment, Unexplained Wealth and Other Measures Bill, because ensuring that we use the proceeds of crime for crime-fighting infrastructure effectively, I think is such a great benefit to the community, and I will speak a little later in my contribution to the ways in which we are using those in the electorate of Deakin. The bill before us today contains a number of measures that will be really effective in hurting the criminal kingpins where it hurts the most, and that's their hip pockets. I was staggered, and I think most Australians would be staggered to learn that the criminal economy in Australia is worth around $15 billion, according to the Australian Crime Commission. That's $15 billion of illegitimate wealth, and the question that immediately sprung to my mind is at what cost? At what cost to all of our communities? I'm sure everyone in this place, and I've heard from other contributions earlier, has stories about how crime has damaged their community. In my electorate of Deakin, as in many other electorates around the country, one example that immediately springs to mind to me is the ice epidemic, which we are currently facing. And just this month, my local paper, the Maroondah Leader, an outstanding publication, reported on how the trafficking of crystal methamphetamine, or ice as I refer to it, is worsening, and that police resources are being significantly tied up in dealing with this threat. I'm informed that in my patch, police are arresting up to 20 drug traffickers a month, and as one senior sergeant said, when we arrest one trafficker, another one jumps into his place. And what of the people who are buying this ice? Unfortunately, we know all too well what this insidious drug can do to people, inducing unpredictable psychosis and other often violent behaviour. There's no doubt that there's a direct link between the supply of ice and crimes such as burglaries, thefts from cars, assaults and other street-type offences. Police are doing an exceptional job, and they are using all of the tools in their chest to stop the scourge of these drugs, and I often applaud their hard work and dedication, and I do so again today. But what we in this place have a responsibility to do is to help our police, our state government counterparts and our communities by introducing laws that will help them combat crime at all levels. We have a responsibility to protect our communities and to create a more safe and secure Australia. And that's what the bill before us today does. It introduces tough measures that strike at the heart of organised crime. These are tough measures that target the people who make their money out of other people's misery, the people who live off other people's addictions through drug trafficking, as I've mentioned, illegal gambling and many others, and who also prey on the vulnerable through cybercrime, identity theft, who rip us all off through money laundering and tax evasion, and who commit or order violent and other abhorrent acts, including assaults, murders and human trafficking. But what I think is important for Australians to understand is that these measures are focused on the people who not only make their money out of other people's misery, but who also insulate themselves from the dirty work, the so-called kingpins, the bosses. And unexplained wealth laws are a very effective weapon, as they take away what crime bosses value most in the world, and that's money. These laws give courts the power to order a person to prove that their wealth was legally acquired. If they can't, they may be ordered to forfeit their illegitimate wealth. As other speakers have mentioned, unexplained wealth laws do already exist in Australia, but these laws need to be strengthened. We took our policy to tackle crime to the last election, and in that we promised to bolster the laws and close loopholes to create the toughest possible regime to cut organised crime off from the profits it needs to reinvest in criminal activity. Today's bill fulfils that promise to the Australian people. I therefore want to congratulate the Minister for Justice, the Honourable Michael Keenan, on his dedication to strengthening the unexplained wealth laws and to combating organised crime more broadly. I know that the Minister is strongly focused on establishing a national and cohesive approach to organised crime, of which today's bill forms one crucial part. It was in fact a focus of discussions between the Commonwealth and the states and territories at the inaugural Law, Crime and Community Safety Council in July. And I was pleased to hear that at the council meeting the various jurisdictions agreed to look at developing a cooperative scheme that will support a national approach to the seizure of unexplained wealth. A working group will also be established to assist with this task. Again, I commend and congratulate the Minister for his success in bringing the various jurisdictions together in this very important battle. The Minister, in his second reading speech, went through the finer details of the measures in the bill and how they will operate, so I won't go into those in great detail today. But I do want to touch on what the amendments in this bill are designed to do, some of which I've foreshadowed a little earlier. The amendments stem from the Joint Committee on Law Enforcement's inquiry into the Commonwealth's unexplained wealth laws and arrangements in 2011, and the committee made a number of recommendations, 18 recommendations in fact, and in its final report, and some of these have yet to be implemented until now. The inquiry involved extensive consultation by law enforcement agencies and stakeholders to make sure the recommendations put forward achieve the right balance of providing the agencies with the tools they need to investigate and target unexplained wealth, while at the same time appropriate protections remaining in place. And from what I've read, today's bill gets the balance right and will be welcomed by law enforcement agencies, including Victoria Police in my patch, as they continue to do an outstanding job in tackling serious and organised crime. Firstly, the amendments seek to strengthen the powers of law enforcement agencies by giving them more tools to go after the profits of criminal syndicates. The bill boosts search and seizure powers under the Proceeds of Crime Act and also makes it easier for state, territory and foreign authorities to share information and work cooperatively. Secondly, the bill seeks to streamline the laws, making them fairer and removing uncertainty. The court's overarching discretion to refuse to make unexplained wealth orders for suspected wealth in excess of $100,000 will be removed, creating greater certainty for all parties. But I stress appropriate protections do remain in place, with the court retaining its discretion to refuse an order if it's satisfied that that refusal would be in the public interest. Finally, the bill closes a number of existing loopholes in the Proceeds of Crime Act, and people will be prevented, as the member for Casey went into some detail, will be prevented from using restrained assets to cover legal expenses to defend an unexplained wealth case. Instead, as with other proceeds of crime orders, they will instead be able to seek legal aid, and I echo the member for Casey's comments in that respect. It's a perverse outcome if a criminal boss in a certain case may be able to string out or unduly tie up the resources of a court by using restrained assets effectively to fund a protracted court case. Also, people whose property is subject to a preliminary unexplained wealth order will be prevented from frustrating the proceedings simply by failing to appear at court. that is a glaring hole in the current laws, and I think it's a very sensible change. So we hope that this reform will help to usher in a new era of combating organised crime by giving both the police and the courts the powers that they need to enforce the unexplained wealth laws. It's also fitting that the criminal profits should fund crime prevention infrastructure. Every dollar that we take from a criminal through the unexplained wealth rules will be reinvested into crime-fighting infrastructure. It is a common-sense approach, and it's certainly been welcomed in my electorate of Deakin, where the coalition government is investing $680,000 to improve public safety through the Safer Streets program. That's $680,000 of money generated from criminal activity that will now make our community a safer place to live and work. Of that funding, $400,000 will be used to install CCTV cameras in Railway Avenue, Ringwood East and Central Ringwood, where many people have expressed to me their concerns about feeling unsafe walking at night. As the member for Casey said, and I foreshadowed at the beginning of my contribution, CCTV has proved to be a very helpful tool for deterring crime and assisting police to identify offenders, so much so that many groups in my electorate of Deakin are certainly making or advocating to me their wish to have additional CCTV in our area. Another $200,000 for the Deakin electorate will go towards installing lighting in Nunawading, where the local Traders Association voiced fears that a lack of lighting makes many of their customers and passers-by feel very unsafe in the area at night. The final piece of the Safer Streets program funding for Deakin is $80,000, which we have provided in the budget to give Whitehall City Council the ability to purchase a new retrofitted graffiti truck to help with the more rapid removal of graffiti in the municipality. Because if people feel unsafe, whether that be through antisocial graffiti in the area, we want to combat that at all levels. All of these crime prevention measures will make a real difference to safety in my community, and it does give me a lot of satisfaction to know that they've been funded by money that would otherwise have gone to furthering criminal activity. And they're just a few examples of the good use that the illegitimate wealth laws can be used in order to provide a great benefit to all of us. I look forward to this bill passing and hopefully to hearing media reports of successful police investigations and prosecutions of unexplained wealth cases, and again knowing that on each occasion the Commonwealth has broken a criminal syndicate and taken away the money that syndicate relies on to continue its destructive activities. Ultimately, each successful prosecution will mean less money going into the hands of drug traffickers, money launderers and other thugs, and more money invested in productivity in our society through crime prevention initiatives. It is a sad reality that serious and organised crime represents a significant threat to the safety and security of our nation, as we all know too well. But today's bill goes a long way towards helping to tackle that threat and undermine serious and organised crime. I'm therefore pleased to have been able to support this bill, and I look forward to the implementation of the reforms it contains, which will ultimately help create a more safe and secure Australia.